Right, welcome. Today is day 11 of Bible in 90 Days, or What's in the Bible, where we're reading through the whole Bible like a novel from Genesis all the way to Revelation. Yesterday we ended off in Numbers. As you know, we've read from Genesis to Exodus to Leviticus. Now we're in Numbers, and at this point of the story, the Israelites, they're in the desert making their way to the promised land. So we just go through it chapter by chapter. So today's Numbers 9 all the way to 21. In Numbers chapter 9, the Israelites, they celebrate the Passover at the appointed time, and there's some clarifications given by God for people who are unclean or away on a journey, that they could still take part in the Passover as well. We see the Israelites' obedience to only move and settle as the cloud, because there was this pillar of cloud that was leading them. Numbers chapter 10, we see the creation of the trumpets for the gathering of the people and breaking away of the camp was there, to have a way of communicating with this many people using a good means. Moses also asks a guy called Hobab to go with them, since he knew the land where they were going through. So after a little discussion, he finally agrees to come with them. We get to Numbers chapter 11. God is angry against the people's complaints at Taberah, because he keeps giving them these signs, but for some reason they keep complaining, they keep disbelieving. So he's not very pleased with them. Then we have a group of people who are called the mixed multitude. If you remember in Exodus, when they were leaving, some other people who were not Israelites actually came with the Israelites as well on the journey. So this mixed multitude, they influenced the Israelites to say, "Oh, things were so good in Egypt. Why are we here? We used to have garlic and cucumber, etc. Now all we have is this manna." So they complain to Moses. Moses in turn complains to God. But the first thing that God does is says, "Okay, call 70 people. I am going to take the spirit that is on Moses and put it on these 70 elders, so that they can help the people of Israel when anything happens." Moses obviously shows his wish for everybody to prophesy, because he was not like power hungry or wanted to be the only prophet in Israel or whatever. So he said, "Yeah, I do wish that everybody would prophesy." Then on to the second issue about the meat that people were complaining about. God sends quail, miraculous provision of quail, but as people are rushing in to actually eat this quail because they wanted the meat so much, most of them actually died by a plague. We get to Numbers chapter 12. Miriam and Aaron, they complained about Moses because Moses married a Cushite woman. Now a Cushite woman in the other translation actually says an Ethiopian woman. So if you notice, Israelites today, Jews today, they look white. Ethiopian women today, they look black. So Moses married this person. Maybe this was the reason for the complaint. But then God comes down, because he's not happy with the situation that Miriam and Aaron are talking behind Moses' back, or kind of criticizing him for this decision. So he then says, "My relationship with Moses is a special one. I speak to him face to face." So God strikes Miriam with leprosy. So she's white in her whole face and her whole body. And at this point, obviously they repent and they ask Moses to pray to God, so that Miriam could be healed. So yes, she is healed after 7 days. We get to Numbers 13, because remember, they're going through in the desert, in the wilderness or whatever, towards the promised land. Moses sends some representatives, one from each tribe, to spy out the land and bring a report to see what the land was looking like. Was it ready for them to take over? But the leaders, when they got there, they saw that these guys were so big, and there was this inferiority complex, so they thought they could never do it. So they brought back a negative report to say, "We cannot do it. We should just go back to Egypt, etc., etc." Except for two guys, which is Caleb and Joshua, and this is how Caleb actually enters the story. So Caleb and Joshua say, "No, their protection has been taken away from them. We should go and capture this land, because it belongs to us." So there's always obviously this this tussle. They did, however, confirm that the land that they were going into was a great land. Grapes were so big, and it was really a land flowing with with milk and honey. So at Numbers 14, it continues. There's fear now among the people that, oh, there are giants in this land. We cannot take over the land, and that now they actually want to return to Egypt. So they say, okay, we're going to find somebody else to lead us back to Egypt. God is obviously angered by their disbelief, especially after everything that we've read through and seen in the story. and God is about to destroy them. But at this point, Moses and Aaron, they intercede again on the behalf of the Israelites. Please do not destroy them, because we're going to go anyway, and we don't want the Egyptians saying that you couldn't get us to the promised land. God says okay. However, He says all the people from 20 years and up who did not believe that they could be taken into Canaan would actually die in the desert and not see the promised land. And 10 of the 12 spies actually died that very day. At this point, Israelites, they changed their mind again and said, no, let's go and attack right now, let's go and take the city. But Moses says, no, that's not the situation. Now we have a new direction. But they're stubborn, they go ahead anyway and try and attack the I think it was the Amalekites, but obviously they get defeated, and that was the end of that. So Numbers chapter 15, we get some extra laws about offerings, about what they would do when they get to Canaan. We hear about the equality of aliens / immigrants. So immigrants that were among them, they called them aliens, and God said they could offer sacrifices too. So there was no divide as to okay, only the Jews could do this or whatever. He said anybody that is among you, and if they want to make an offering to God, they could do that. Then we have a reminder as far as the atonement is in the taking away of the sins of Israel. But then there's also a footnote to say that the people that would sin unrepentantly or continually or intentionally would have to be expelled from the Israelites. We don't have a scenario where someone is stoned for actually working on the Sabbath. And at this point, God says they should have fringes on their garments to remind them of the laws of God. We get to number 16. There's a conspiracy between a guy called Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and On, who say to Moses, listen, we also want to serve in the tabernacle, we also want to offer sacrifices, but this is something that had been specifically designated for Aaron and and his sons. But these guys, they were like, well, we want to be in a position of power as well, etc., etc. This obviously angers Moses. Says, okay, let's let God make that decision. You bring your censers, we'll bring ours, we'll make an offering to God, and whoever the one that God accepts is the one that God wants to do this thing. So obviously they get there. Moses prays a prayer and says, God, whoever it is that you accept, show it today by doing a miracle, something that's totally different. And to those that you don't accept, let the ground open up and and swallow them up. So God answers that prayer. The ground opens up and swallows these guys and their families. We get into Numbers chapter 17, where God just makes another declaration that He had specifically chosen Aaron and his sons. So they get him to get some twigs or staffs or whatever and say, okay, get 12 of them and put them in the I think it was in the Ark of the Covenant, and say, listen, whatever blossoms by tomorrow is the tribe that I've chosen. So the stick that had Aaron's name written on it is the one that blossomed, and it had fruit, etc. Just overnight, which was a stamp of approval on Aaron and his sons, that they were the ones that were going to do the work in the in the temple. We get to Numbers chapter 18. We see again Aaron and his sons certified as the prophet, as the priesthood, and nobody else would do that. So all the offerings that were not burnt would be dedicated to the to Aaron and his sons, and this is actually how they would survive. We also hear about the tithes, that the purpose of the tithes was for the Levites to actually live on that, because they had no other pasture lands or anything to survive by. So the offerings of the Israelites would actually take care of the Israelites. Now we get to we also get some information about the tithe of the tithe, that even the stuff that the Levites were given, they were also supposed to offer some of that to God. Numbers 19, we hear about the red heifer that was supposed to be killed outside the camp, and the blood was supposed to be sprinkled in the tent of meeting. We get a few laws around dead bodies and what to do when somebody would die. Numbers chapter 20, just 2 more chapters to go. Numbers chapter 20, we see the death of Miriam, who was the sister to Aaron and Moses. After that, the Israelites, they complain about lack of water, and Aaron and Moses go and ask God. God tells them to speak to the rock this time around. The last time, they had to strike the rock, but this time he said just speak to the rock, but they strike it instead, maybe because they were angry or they were frustrated. As a result, God tells them that they would not enter the promised land, and they continue from there. So whilst they're going through, they had to pass through a country of Edom, which is actually Esau's like descendants, but they refused, so they had to find another way to to get to the promised land. We also have the death of Aaron, and then Eleazar takes over from from Aaron. Numbers 21, we see the war against King Arad, who had captured some of the Israelites, but obviously they get them back and they manage to defeat King Arad. And people speak against God for whatever reason, and some serpents come and bite them, and for them to be healed, another serpent is to be put on a stick or a pole, and whoever looked at that pole would actually be healed. We also get to see some details tracing the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness, and there's a war against King Sihon after he had attacked them, and war against some more territories in Bashan. So the chunk of today really is tracing the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness on their way to the promised land, as they have been really ever since we left Exodus. So again, we're that continuation of the story as we continue to go on. So we're in Numbers again tomorrow. I will hope to see you then. I'm really having a good time. I hope you have seen all the other videos leading up to now, because the story is the same, it's continuing. So in order to get the full picture, if there are any episodes that you have missed, please go ahead and watch those. And if you like the videos, like the page, subscribe on YouTube, share the video with with your friends, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow.